Welcome to the Black Girls Heal podcast, where we talk about changing unavailable relationship patterns, healing unresolved trauma, and building a healthy relationship with first you and then others. Every episode, we will talk about actionable advice that you can apply today to break unhealthy patterns and grow your self-worth. I'm Sheena Tubbs. Let's begin. Hello, and welcome to the latest episode of Black Girls Heal. I am so excited to have you with me again today. So today's episode is all about how to get unstuck using self-forgiveness. This hopefully can be an episode that anyone who is just, looking at the archives, looking at the list of podcast episodes can come and get what they need from this episode, but this is also being recorded in the middle of our love deprivation series. So last week I did an episode talking about 5 ways to exit love deprivation, one of our intimacy disorder models that we talk about here. I got all of your DMs and messages that y'all really enjoyed last week's episode, that it really touched a chord for many of you. And so I love that so much. I love that it was what you needed to give you perspective and to help kind of stir some things up so that you know that it doesn't always have to be that way, and for you to know that you are worthy. So happy for all of you. And this episode is going to definitely follow up with that. So much of being in love deprivation is about this feeling of being stuck, either stuck by your fear or stuck with fear of it not working out, or that fear of not being enough, all the things that we talked about last week. And one thing that you can do to help you get unstuck is to practice self-forgiveness, to practice some of that tenderness and kindness and goodness that you deserve, that is really hard for you to give yourself because you feel like you don't deserve it, because you feel like the mistake that you made, the ideas that you've been holding, the things that other people have seen you do just completely disqualifies you. And so you're the one who's holding yourself to this impossible standard and waiting for the day that you earn the right to move out of your place of stuckness. And that day doesn't come because you're the one who has the lock and key. Nobody else's opinion, nobody else's judgment. There's no moment in time that can give you that freedom except for you. Right. And so this is one of the things that we're going deeper into in our Love Woman Foundation's course and challenge that we have coming up this May. Welcome also to the ladies who have joined. And so this is going to be what we're going to be taking deep dives into and learning about and building on so that we can actually break through and build a life that we want. But I did want to talk about it here today so that y'all have an opportunity to get started on it for those of you who are ready to move forward. So let's get started. So like I said, we are usually stuck when it comes to love deprivation, not only because of fear, but because of shame. Shame is that feeling that makes you think that you are a bad person. Not the things that you've done are bad, not the things that you've done could have used a little bit more wisdom, but that you are a fool versus you may have done something that was foolish. That you are unwanted versus doing things that may have seemed a little bit insecure, but that you are the problem. And shame will keep you thinking about what you should have done, what you could have done. If only I would have known better, I would have done this, and things would have worked out differently. And all this fantasy, right? All this fantasy where you don't know what would have happened. You don't know if this is exactly the path that you needed to walk to get to where you are today. And it's really hard for you to see what lessons and what opportunities may have come from where you are because you're so stuck in the shame feelings. And a lot of times we pick up patterns of shame because we're taught that we have to be perfect. We are taught that we're not allowed to grow and be human, and we just adopt that as truth. And so what could be embarrassment or even momentary guilt becomes an identity that we hold on to, and that we filter all of the decisions that we make and that we don't make through that lens, right? If I don't like myself, if I feel really low, if I feel like a failure, if I feel like an imposter, if I feel not chosen or undeserving, then all the things that I go out for or the things I don't go out for are going to be inspired by this self-belief that I hold. And what I want you to know is that none of this thinking and ruminating helps you. You think that by replaying your old mistakes and the things you should have made and the moments in time you wish you could go back to, you think that if you flip it over, look at it, and overanalyze it over and over again, that somehow is going to give you wisdom. Somehow is going to give you some comfort, maybe, right? It is kind of comforting to go back and look at something and try to do the bargaining and the what ifs, but you ruminating about it, love, it doesn't change it. It doesn't change what happens. What actually happens is you think about it so much that at the end you still feel like crap at the end, that the fantasy stops having the same amount of charge and soothing comfort that it had at first, to where you need more and more time to think about it, more and more time to replay the scenarios, more and more time to go deeper. But like I said, at the end, you still feel unresolved, and you still feel low, and you still feel as if you've made a mistake and that you've lost out on whatever it is that you're thinking about. You have lost all this time in your day that you could have spent connecting to other people, connecting to yourself, building the life that you're very sad that you missed out on, or building the happiness that you feel so detached from. Because you've been in your head this whole time, and you've been isolating this whole time, and you've been trying to numb out this whole time. And then also, because you spent so much time replaying the mistake, or replaying what could have happened or what should have happened, and what life didn't give you, and the things your mom should have said or didn't say, or things your dad could have done or didn't do, or the things the way your ex hurt you, or the way that you hurt your ex and broke up the relationship, whatever is in your mind, the things you said to your children that you wish you could take back, all of that stuff, y'all. What happens when we just keep repeating how much we failed and how not good enough we are is it sets us up to quit before we even start later on, right? Again, us thinking that if we keep obsessing about what could have been, we think that that's going to give us wisdom so that we won't make that mistake going forward. But that's not what it does. It just reinforces that we are lacking. So when it comes time to actually build, it is hard for us to do that because we have spent so much time reinforcing this memory, reinforcing this idea of loss, of lack, of disbelief, of self-doubt. So now, even when we have the opportunity that's right in front of our lap, we go into it tentatively, if we go into it at all. We go in with this super hypervigilance of how something can go wrong, to where we may choke out all of the happiness and choke out all the possibility, or we may be too afraid to actually relax and rest into it. Right? And so for us to move forward, we got to stop being in this rumination and this fantasy. We need to stop obsessing about all the things that were wrong, and maybe start to look at what are some things that could go right, which could be a totally different way of looking at the world. Instead of looking at all the things that could go wrong, I'm saying that again, let's look at all the things that could go right. Let's look at all the ways that we could the word that comes to mind is a word in Spanish. It's sobrevivir, which translates to like overcome. But even past that, the other word that comes to mind, which is also in Spanish, is superar. Which, someone on the other side of this is a native Spanish speaker. And it's like, girl, what are you talking about? But superar is like surpassing. Like, the image I have is us not even just surviving and just living past what we've had, but us superseding all of our previous ideas and beliefs of what we thought were possible. Like, the image I have in my mind is us not just walking through the rubble, but that we are walking through the rubble of life, and like we are like super women, and we jump into the sky and we're flying with our hands in the air like Wonder Woman, like that type of energy. Is it possible for you to see yourself in that type of light? Is it possible with all the shame and all the deprivation and all of the embarrassment that you have had, all the stuckness that you've had, can you imagine that your life can be that good, that it is not over? That it is not over. Life is not over for you, love. You have not messed up so much. You have not fucked up so much. You have not been so broken that it cannot be healed and that you cannot create and write this next chapter. As long as you have you, as long as you have connection to your mind, connection to your spirit, as long as you have those abilities, my dear, you can always create and recreate. Always. Okay? So, with all that said, the first step to help us actually move and not being stuck in the past that we can't do anything about is to practice some self-forgiveness. So here are just a few steps that, like I said, we'll go deeper into later on for those of you who do the challenge. But if not, this is going to absolutely help you. Okay. So the first thing that I need you to do as you are looking at all the things, all the reasons why you feel like you're stuck, all the what ifs, all the regrets, all of the ways that you feel as if you are deficient or the ways that you are behind or that you've lost time, is I need you to do what I've told you to do before, is be honest about how you feel. Be honest about what this feels like for you, whether or not it's sadness or anger or resentment or disdain or distrust or disgust with yourself or with other people. Be honest about what you're feeling there. And if it's more of the sadder emotions, you may notice that some rage or some anger comes up. And, I talk about all the time here, a lot of times our anger and rage comes up when we finally let ourselves feel the sadness and be honest about what we're actually feeling, because many times we weren't allowed to feel that sadness before. We felt that if we felt sad or lonely or helpless or whatever, that we would be betraying other people, that we should be grateful, that we should be happy, that this isn't that big of a deal for us to feel upset about. Girl, whatever you feel upset about, you have a right to feel it. You have a right to feel whatever you need to feel at whatever time you need to feel it, right? Your feelings are your own. They are not curses. They are not bad. They are there to give you information, and they're there to support you. And we cannot villainize emotions and say, well, these are good emotions and they are bad emotions. All emotions are what provide the richness of life, including the ones that involve sadness, anger, rage, and all that. Because by us feeling those things, that's how we get to joy. We clear all that stuff out, we acknowledge it, we look at it, and we name it so that we can say, okay, I understand what you're trying to tell me. I understand what you're trying to express to me. How do I support this so that I can move through it and get to maybe the more positive reframing emotions that you may want to have? And so notice when I say being honest about what you feel, that this could seem contradictory to the first point that I was talking about, which is, not ruminating on what you could have done or what you should have said or what should have happened or that you never had access to do, and now you're an older adult woman learning about these things, whatever older adult means to you, whether it's late 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. These are just all the things that I hear when I talk about these things with my students. When I talk about not ruminating, sometimes people will mistake that for saying, well, I'm not thinking about it. Like, I am really trying to move on and it still comes up. Well, that's because you're talking about repression. You're repressing your emotions. You haven't felt your emotions. You have said, oh, nope, don't want to deal with that. Or, oh, nope, that's too much. Or what's the point in thinking about this? I'm not going to be able to change it anyways. And you're doing everything you can to push it away, to create distractions, to create a life in spite of the pain that you felt before that you never had an opportunity to work through. And that is not the same as moving through your emotions and feeling them and being honest about them. That's why they keep coming up, right? You keep pushing down a trash can enough, and keeps putting more crap inside of it, that sucker's going to overflow. It ain't enough jumping on top of it that's going to make it stay inside, right? And then all the stuff starts coming out sideways, and that's what's happening in your life. You're trying to push things down, and it's coming out sideways. So that's not what we're doing. That's not what we do. We need to feel those emotions, be honest about it, feel them for however long we need to feel them. Emotions are like waves, right? Even a tsunami, even if it comes super high, it's going to come up and it's going to come down, right? You're not going to stay under it forever, but we need to actually feel it so that it can actually come and leave, okay? After you feel your emotions about whatever regrets or things that you feel low about or feel shame about or feel late about, It's time for you to practice some self-kindness. It's time for you to start talking to yourself with some tenderness. It's time for you to stop being so mean to yourself. Stop being so rude to you. Let yourself have bad days. Let yourself have bad months. Let yourself have bad years. Let yourself, you manifesting queen who's trying so hard to be positive, girl, if you feel low one day, let yourself feel low so that you can move through it and do whatever tools you need to do to work through it, right? Stop making yourself try to be inhuman. And when I talk about self-kindness, what I'm really talking about is learning how to talk to yourself in the ways that people should have been talking to you all along, right? So when you were younger, or even last week, when you were having a bad moment or bad day, learning to talk to yourself instead of the let's get it together, you got stuff to do, let's move on, this ain't going to help you. If that's not the most negative, critical, authoritarian voice that many of us have adopted, because those were the voices that used to talk to us, what if it sounded more like, I know that this is really hard for you. This would be tough for anybody. I'm so sorry that you're going through this. Man, what can we do to help you feel some comfort? It's okay for you to take a break. It's okay for you to not have the answers to this. It's okay for you to want more. It's okay for you to need more. Like, what if those were the words that we gave to ourselves when we were feeling low instead of the alternative? The next thing for you to do and practice to get to practicing that self-forgiveness, or which is part of the self-forgiveness, which is understanding that your actions are not synonymous with qualities about you. So what it looks like when we're living in love deprivation and being stuck in that fear and that regret and that shame and that self-loathing and feeling not good enough is thinking, man, I am so dumb because I did this. I am so stupid because I did this. I am so unlucky because this happened to me. I am so weak because I said this or made this decision or didn't stand up for myself or didn't see this. I'm so gullible. I am, whatever. I am unattractive. Like, whatever your negative core belief is, that's what we attribute all the things that have happened. We're like, well, because this happened, then this happened. And the math is, you got some things off there. That is a false equation. And there are some double negatives in there that we need to turn into a positive. Okay. So your experiences do not define you, which leads to the next one. You get to, well, actually, let me say this. I'm just going to keep this as part of the third one. You get to decide who you are. No one can say anything about you or make a judgment about you that hurts you if you don't believe it yourself. So if you're the one who thinks that you're dumb, and you're the one that thinks that you're stupid, and you're the one who thinks that you're gullible, you're going to keep feeling that way. There's no experience that's going to happen to you. There's no relationship. There's no lottery ticket. There's no set of compliments. There's nothing that's going to make you feel better about yourself if you are determined to believe that. And many of us are waiting for this external factor, this external moment to disprove this really negative core belief that we have. But that's where the self-sabotaging comes in at. That's why we can get everything that we want and still feel unworthy of it and then wonder, why do I still feel this way? Well, it's because you still think the way that you do about yourself, which is why we have to be on our own journey to actually embrace that we are love worthy, to actually consider it and actually make it be real and true into our hearts, and not for it just to be a stopgap, for it to not be a layover. So many of us are doing our healing work, quote unquote, or we're actually trying to do it, but we're actually saying, okay, I'm doing this so that I can get fill in the blank, right? Because there's a part of us that really believes that, like, whatever that gift or prize is, that is going to be the ultimate reward. But there are many people, y'all know better than I do. There are many people who have money. There are many people who have relationships with amazing people. There are many people who have incredible jobs that you would kill for, and they are still miserable and they still don't like themselves, right? There are so many celebrities, y'all, who will talk about how they have gotten their Oscars, gotten their millions, gotten all this stuff, and had to go on their own self-discovery journey because they learned that at the top of the mountain, it was still just them. So if that's the case, If that's the case, what if we started from the bottom up and started with the answer in mind instead of running all around, running from ourselves and learning how to redefine how we feel about ourselves, starting with our own self-belief. And then the last thing is making sure that we get up and do something about it. So the best gift that you can give yourself, y'all, if you're struggling with stuckness and you're working through self-forgiveness, is actually doing something different. Feeling your emotions, being kind to yourself, understanding that what happened to you does not define you, and then making movement to make it happen. To make it happen today, to understand that every time you procrastinate and every time you're saying, okay, I'll do it next time, I'll do it next round, I'll do it next season, I'll do it next month, that you are only reinforcing that fear of success or fear of failure. There is never going to be a right time. Y'all, you bring yourself everywhere you go. You bring yourself into every work meeting. You bring yourself into every relationship. Every conversation you have with a child, with a significant partner, with your mother, with the people at the grocery store, you bring your self-image everywhere you go. So every time I hear people say, well, I'll work on myself, I'll wait to do this until later on, I'm like, why? Why spend more time with the same roadblocks and hurdles you've been working through this whole time? I mean, your whole life. What's going to be different next month than this month versus more moments where you have made a wrong decision or what you feel like is a wrong decision, more time that you've been self-critical, more time that you have stopped believing in yourself, or you find a relationship with someone that you go through the ups and downs of like, oh, okay, everything's great, or, oh, okay, I got a promotion, or, oh, okay, see, this is what I've been waiting for. And then you ride that wave only to find that you still feel just empty at the end. Now is the right time. If you have connected to anything that I've said today, or anything that I said last episode, or any other episode, now is the time for you to actually put in that work for you to improve your self-love and how you see yourself, so that you can bring that peace, that understanding, that self-forgiveness, that self-kindness with you into the next step, into your everyday moment. Now's the time. Okay? So give yourself the gift of action. All right. So y'all know what that means. That means anything. That means whether or not it means calling up a therapist, whether or not that means starting coaching, whether or not that means joining one of our programs, whether or not that means returning that text on the phone with the friends that keep reaching out to you and asking you how you feeling, and you're like, oh, I'll call them back later. Y'all, I almost said a bad word. The ways that we will reinforce our own narratives, you feel so lonely and you feel like no one cares for you. Meanwhile, you got people who are always trying to check in on you, and you say, okay, I'll talk to them later. Or you only give them a little bit. And then if they stop inviting you places, or if they start checking in, you feel some way about it. Like, y'all, we have to look at how we will and a lot of times this is unconscious, which is why you really need outside support to help you with this. A lot of times we don't even realize what we're doing that's getting in our own way. We don't even realize when we're self-sabotaging. We think that we're doing everything completely functional and normal, not realizing how much we have normalized some types of dysfunction, right? We could be super functional in other areas, super successful, and then some other areas are just like the thorns in our side, right? So practice some self-forgiveness by those 3 actions, then followed up with doing something different about it, okay? So that's what I have for today's episode. I hope that you found it helpful. Like I said, we are going through this together in the month of May, y'all. Our new course, the Love Women Foundations, which is a self-paced course. I'm taking women through it for 30 days with extra lessons on working through love deprivation, self-forgiveness, operating in our love worthiness, learning how to be kind to ourselves, learning some tools around embracing those emotions and doing something differently. Y'all, I want you to be there. So excited for the ladies who've already joined. At the time that I'm recording this, we are still in early bird registration, which means that the price will go up after this Saturday. So would love for you to come and join us. And then we start on the 1st of May. So let me know if y'all have any questions about that. You can go to blackgirlsheal.org/thelovedwoman to join us. And for those of you who are wanting to be in my bigger coaching program, from addicted and avoidant to available, no worries. The Love Woman Foundations is included into that. So my current students, y'all are going to already get to participate in this challenge and just be a part of it. And for those of you who are wanting to join the May cohort, and you'll be coming to our open house about that program on May the 3rd, you will also, if you decide to join A2A, you'll be able to participate in that challenge, or if you've already joined the challenge, you can get that discounted from your enrollment. So looking forward to getting to know all of you ladies and joining with you and loving on you and helping you get these breakthroughs. But just know that you are worthy of that self-forgiveness love. You are so worthy. All right. So that's it for now. I will see you next week. And as always, please, please, please take care of yourselves. Hey, so thanks for listening to today's podcast. If you enjoy what you learned today, it doesn't have to stop here. Check out the Black Girls Heal website at blackgirlsheal.org for more resources to help you heal from intimacy disorders like love addiction and love avoidance. The best time to start or restart your healing journey is now. You can grab a free copy of our 5-step roadmap to heal love addiction, love avoidance, and love deprivation by going to blackgirlsheal.org/roadmap. And if you're on social media, feel free to follow us at Black Girls Heal on Instagram and Facebook.